What you're looking at here is rock art found in Sego Canyon in Utah. Some of this stuff looks very interesting. These petroglyphs, some more than 8,000 years old, feature these mysterious figures with large, hollow eyes and often no arms or legs. Some even look like they have antennas. To fans of the ancient astronaut theory, this looks like possible evidence that extraterrestrials came to Earth long ago. One of the most famous images is known as the Barrier Canyon Holy Man. This one is very eerie. I mean, just what is this thing that the smaller, dark figures are surrounding? Is it meant to be a god, or could it be a depiction of something they really saw, something from another world? Well, researcher Polly Shavsma thinks that these figures were probably created as part of shamanic rituals, not encounters with aliens. That the figures with strange eyes and legless bodies might represent spirit beings or supernatural entities that shamans, spiritual leaders of the time, claimed to have contacted during trance-like states. According to Shavsma, shamans often believed they could travel to other realms using hallucinogens to connect with these divine beings for guidance. What exactly are these figures wearing on their heads? Some say they look a lot like helmets. These figures are part of the Valonica petroglyphs in Italy. They're often mentioned when the concept of ancient alien astronauts is brought up. You know, because isn't everyone talking about this stuff all the time? These petroglyphs, which date back over 10,000 years, show a variety of different images. Some of them are pretty standard stuff, animals, symbols, godlike entities, but some of them, especially the two astronaut-looking guys, look way more sci-fi than anything you could expect from ancient humans. So did these ancient humans record encounters with extraterrestrials, or are we just seeing what we want to see? At the end of the day, we can never really know for sure unless we somehow manage to invent time travel, which I really hope we do. In the tribal Bastar region of Chhattisgarh, India, a set of ancient rock paintings were rediscovered in 2014, and they're pretty crazy looking. Discovered near the town of Churramama, the paintings date back about 10,000 years, and archaeologist J.R. Bhagat was immediately fascinated by how much of them seemed to look like aliens and UFOs, and I definitely see it. Some seem to show humanoid figures with antennae descending from the sky, others seem to be flying in disc-shaped crafts with the 3 legs coming out from the bottom. In a few images, the figures are shown wearing what appear to be spacesuits. Now, Bhagat was pretty much full on with the alien stuff. He actually made it pretty clear that he thought there was a very good chance these paintings represented ancient humans' encounters with extraterrestrials, or at least their imagination of alien beings from out in the stars. Locals from the area also have legends of ancient beings known as the Rohela people, which translates to the small-sized ones. And they have stories of these entities landing in flying machines, abducting villagers and taking them away, never to be seen again. Could these rock paintings be depicting those very same sky visitors, or are these images just products of the artist's imaginations? The Wanjina cave paintings of the Kimberley region in Australia have fascinated people for centuries. These paintings show figures with these large black eyes, white faces, and no mouths, often surrounded by halos or what sorta look like helmets. They're unlike anything we'd expect to see in Aboriginal art, which has led to this theory that these could be depictions of alien beings. Now, the Wanjina are considered powerful spirit beings in Australian Aboriginal culture, believed to have come from the sky during the dream time. They're said to have created the land and its people before disappearing into the earth or returning back to the stars. But it's really hard to look at these images here and not see your stereotypical alien, isn't it? Why are they painted this way? Could these ancient beings really have been extraterrestrial visitors? In the heart of the Sahara, there is a place called the Tassili Martian, a massive sandstone plateau in southern Algeria. First of all, the landscape just looks otherworldly. It looks like another planet, which makes some of the rock art even stranger. The rock art, which includes about 15,000 paintings and carvings, is considered one of the richest archaeological sites in the entire world. The most famous part of the Tassili rock art is from what's called the Round Head period, which dates back around 6 to 8,000 years, and these images, they're definitely out there. The figures painted on the rocks have big round heads, no real facial features, and some even have strange, almost alien-looking features like this one here with the elongated head. Another famous image, known as the God of Safar, almost looks like a humanoid wearing some sort of strange suit. And some of the other figures look like they're wearing diving helmets or spacesuits. Of course, others argue that these could just be representations of ritualistic masks or ceremonial dresses from ancient times. Whatever they are though, these paintings give us an incredible look into the life in the Sahara thousands of years ago. The Cochno Stone is a massive 42-foot by 26-foot stone in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland, covered in strange, grooved spirals, geometric shapes, and over 90 mysterious cup and ring carvings. The markings are believed to date back around 5,000 years, making the stone one of the finest examples of Bronze Age rock art in Europe. It was discovered by Reverend James Harvey in 1887. What makes the Cochno Stone so intriguing is not just the sheer number of carvings on it, but some of the odd features like the pre-Christian cross, 2 pairs of carved footprints, each with only 4 toes. Why only 4 toes? Could this be a symbol, or could it mean some kind of otherworldly influence? In the 60s, the stone was repeatedly damaged by vandals, so in 1964, archaeologists decided to cover it up to protect it. The stone was buried for decades, but about 8 years ago, it started being unearthed again. And this unearthing, of course, brought a lot of attention to the mysterious carvings once again. Some theorists, especially those into the ancient astronaut idea, think these carvings could be evidence of alien visitors from the past. The weird shapes, the footprints, is it just ancient art, or could it be something more? In the Talampaya National Park in Argentina, there's a mysterious collection of ancient petroglyphs carved into some of the rock faces. The petroglyphs date back thousands of years, with some estimates putting them around 2,000 to 3,000 years old. I mean, does this not look a bit like a person in a spacesuit to you? I mean, it's very rudimentary, but I could see it. Some of the figures also have large round heads with long thin bodies and arms. Others have bizarre elongated faces or oversized eyes. It could just be stylistic, of course, but it's easy to see why some people say these might be representations of ancient encounters with something from beyond. The Judaculla Rock is this massive boulder in the mountains of North Carolina, full of some of the most intriguing sets of petroglyphs in the United States. The rock itself is covered in over 1,500 symbols, including cut marks, spirals, tracks, and what some believe to be winged shapes and claw-like imprints. But what do these designs actually mean? Some think the petroglyphs may represent a map of the surrounding landscape, showing hunting trails, rivers, and landmarks that were important to the Cherokee people. The Cherokee also have their own legends connected to the rock, including stories of Judaculla, a mythical creature described as this slant-eyed master of game. The rock is considered spiritually significant to the Cherokee, and it was part of an old trail connecting sacred sites with more than 1,500 carvings. Judaculla Rock holds more petroglyphs than any other site east of the Mississippi. Its true meaning is still a bit of a mystery, but it is clear that the ancient site was extremely important culturally and spiritually. So we're gonna go back to Sego Canyon for a moment to talk more specifically about the rock art created by the Fremont people. Sego County is a bit of a time capsule, with rock art from 4 different periods: Archaic, Fremont, Ute, and even some Anglo-American additions from the late 1800s. The Fremont style dates back around 600 to 1250 CE. It features these human-like figures that are pecked directly into the rock, and they're very strange looking figures. To me, some of them almost look like your classic 1950s style robots. Very boxy bodies, what almost looks like antennas sticking out of their heads, details that look kind of like buttons and knobs on their bodies. Again, could these figures represent something more than just ancient people? Could they be alien visitors or their technology? By the time the Ute style started coming about, around 1300 to the mid-1800s, the art had evolved to include more realistic depictions of animals, shields, and warriors, more standard stuff. And then, of course, we see the addition of graffiti by settlers and miners in the 19th century. In the hills of Galicia, Spain, there's a fascinating collection of ancient rock art known as the Galician spirals, found on rocks scattered across the region that date back thousands of years, with some estimates putting them at over 4,000 years old. The spirals are pretty interesting because of their unusual-ish design. They're typically circular or spiral shapes, sometimes intertwined with other patterns like zigzags or concentric rings. Spirals are often interpreted as symbolic representations of ancient religious or spiritual beliefs at the time. Some researchers think they could be connected to the sun, cycles of nature, or fertility, but what's interesting is how these shapes resemble motifs found in other ancient cultures from Europe to South America. Some people believe these spirals might actually depict something more extraordinary, like alien encounters. The idea is that the spirals with their complex swirling shapes could be taken from symbols on alien visitors' spacecraft. And, I could see that because of how similar these are across the world. Is this stuff humans were seeing everywhere? I mean, they had no contact with each other at the time. Or it could just be something we intrinsically draw. We just like doing those shapes, Take your pick.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have the Tassili Martian cave paintings in Algeria. Deep in the Sahara Desert, the Tassili Martian plateau of Algeria harbors cave paintings that have mystified historians. These artworks, created over 12,000 years ago, showcase not only the expected depictions of animals and everyday life, but also mysterious humanoid figures with large round heads and peculiar antenna-like protrusions. For some enthusiasts of ancient astronaut theories, these strange beings hint at extraterrestrial visitors or even predictions of future human space exploration. They wonder, did our ancestors witness something beyond their understanding, or were they envisioning a destiny among the stars? On the other hand, archaeologists and anthropologists provide a more grounded interpretation. They believe these figures represent humans adorned with ceremonial masks or elaborate headdresses, reflecting the spiritual rituals and cultural richness of the ancient inhabitants. In our number 9 spot, today we have the Val Camonica petroglyphs in Italy. Nestled in the Italian Alps, Val Camonica is home to one of the world's largest collections of prehistoric petroglyphs, boasting over 140,000 symbols and figures etched into the rock over thousands of years. Among these ancient carvings are intriguing humanoid figures that appear to have halos or rays shooting from their heads. This curious detail has fueled speculations that these artists were depicting astronauts or divine beings, perhaps even hinting at advanced knowledge or technologies far beyond their time. Some wonder if these carvings are eerie predictions of future developments or encounters with otherworldly entities. However, most scholars interpret these radiant figures as representations of spiritual power or significance, possibly depicting deities, shamans, or warriors adorned in ceremonial gear meant to signify their importance within the community. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Temple of Hathor. Deep within the ancient Temple of Hathor at Dendera, Egypt, there's a set of carvings that have ignited both wonder and wild theories. These intriguing carvings show what appear to be giant light bulbs, complete with filament-like snakes inside, being supported by priests or deities. Some modern observers have jumped to the electrifying conclusion that the Egyptians not only predicted future technology, but might have actually harnessed electricity long before Thomas Edison lit up the world. Could these carvings be evidence of ancient light bulbs illuminating the pharaoh's temples? While the idea is a spark for the imagination, mainstream Egyptologists offer a different perspective. They explain that these images are deeply rooted in Egyptian mythology, depicting the lotus flower giving birth to a serpent, symbolizing the god Harsomptis and the daily cycle of creation and rebirth. The so-called bulbs are not electrical devices, but spiritual symbols brimming with religious meaning. So while it is fun to think of ancient Egyptians tinkering with tech gadgets, the reality illuminates something perhaps even more fascinating: the rich and complex belief system that inspired some of the most enduring art in human history. In In our number 7 spot today, we have the Wanjina rock art in Australia. Deep in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, the ancient Wanjina rock art mesmerizes with its haunting figures. Beings with large heads, enormous eyes, and no mouths, all enveloped by halos or cloud-like shapes. These striking images, painted by Indigenous Australians thousands of years ago, have sparked all sorts of theories. Some people look at these otherworldly figures and speculate that they're depictions of ancient astronauts or predictions of future encounters with aliens. But when we delve into the rich cultural tapestry of the indigenous communities, a different story begins to unfold. The Wanjina are revered ancestral spirits linked to weather phenomena like rain and storms, embodying the very essence of creation and life. The halos and cloud-like forms symbolize their control over the elements, and the absence of mouth signifies that their power is so immense they don't need to speak to exert it. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Sego Canyon petroglyphs. In the heart of Utah's rugged landscape, Sego Canyon holds a treasure trove of ancient rock art that has puzzled and intrigued visitors for generations. Spanning over 8,000 years and created by various indigenous cultures, the canyon's sandstone walls are adorned with large humanoid figures sporting elongated bodies, oversized eyes, and, curiously enough, antenna-like appendages protruding from their heads. These mysterious images have sparked the imaginations of theorists who speculate that they're depictions of extraterrestrial beings or even time travelers, suggesting that the artists might have been forecasting future encounters with aliens or some kind of advanced technology. On the flip side, archaeologists and experts provide a more down-to-earth explanation. They believe these figures are spiritual representations, capturing visions experienced during trance states or serving as stylized artistic expressions. The exaggerated features likely symbolize a connection to the spiritual realm rather than messages from the stars. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Chauvet Cave paintings. Tucked away in the south of France, the Chauvet Cave holds a stunning gallery of artwork that dates back around 36,000 years, making it one of the oldest known sites of human creativity. The walls are adorned with incredibly detailed and realistic paintings of animals, like lions, rhinoceroses, and horses. What's truly fascinating is the sophistication of these images. The artists used shading, perspective, and motion techniques that seem astonishingly advanced for their time. This has led some to speculate that these Paleolithic painters had knowledge of future artistic developments or even flirted with the concept of motion pictures on a very primitive level, of course. The way they captured movement by depicting animals with multiple sets of legs creates a sequential narrative almost like frames in animation. However, most scholars attribute this to the exceptional skill and keen observation of these early humans who were intimately connected with the wildlife around them. The paintings likely served ritualistic purposes or communicated vital information about animal behavior and the environment. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Temple of Seti I. Hidden in the depths of Egypt's Temple of Seti I at Abydos are hieroglyphs that have sparked both excitement and debate. Among the ancient symbols, some carvings bizarrely resemble modern-day vehicles. Think helicopters perched above doorways, submarines gliding along walls, and airplanes etched into stone. These uncanny images have led to jaw-dropping claims that the ancient Egyptians possessed knowledge of future technology or perhaps even had encounters with time travelers. Did they really have a sneak peek into inventions that wouldn't appear until thousands of years later? While the idea sets the imagination racing, historians and archaeologists offer a bit more of a grounded explanation. These so-called vehicles are actually an accidental result, moments where scribes chiseled new hieroglyphs over older ones. Over time, the plaster covering the original carvings eroded, causing the layers to merge and form shapes that coincidentally resemble our modern machines. So while the ancient Egyptians were masters of engineering and astronomy, it's unlikely that they were sketching blueprints for helicopters and submarines. In In our number 3 spot today, we have the Churramama rock paintings. Hidden within the caves of Chhattisgarh in India, the Churramama rock paintings date back around 10,000 years. These ancient artworks depict humanoid figures with helmets and antenna-like appendages alongside disc-shaped objects hovering in the sky. Images that uncannily resemble modern-day depictions of UFOs and extraterrestrials. Such striking visuals have led some to speculate that these cave paintings are evidence of prehistoric encounters with alien visitors, or even predictions of future technological advancements. Most anthropologists and archaeologists interpret these figures as representations of mythological beings or deities from local folklore, with the helmets and antenna possibly symbolizing ceremonial headgear or spiritual attributes. The floating discs might be symbolic portrayals of celestial bodies or spiritual phenomena significant to the culture of the time. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Nazca Lines in Peru. Stretching across the barren desert of southern Peru, the Nazca Lines are one of the most mysterious wonders in the world. Etched into the earth between 500 BCE and 500 CE, these massive geoglyphs depict a menagerie of animals, soaring birds, intricate monkeys, and sprawling spiders, alongside complex geometric shapes. What's completely mind-boggling is that these designs are only fully visible from the air, leading some to speculate that the ancient Nazca people either had knowledge of flight or created them as signals to beings from the sky. Could they have predicted future aviation technology, or were they trying to communicate with extraterrestrials? While such theories add a thrilling layer of mystery, most researchers lean towards more terrestrial explanations. They believe the Nazca Lines had ritualistic or astronomical purposes, possibly serving as giant calendars or being part of water-related ceremonies in this arid region. Crafted by removing the dark topsoil to reveal lighter ground beneath, the creation of these geoglyphs was well within the technological reach of the Nazca culture. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Lascaux shaft scene. Deep within the winding passages of France's Lascaux Cave, there is a mysterious painting known as the shaft scene that continues to baffle and intrigue. It depicts a human figure with a bird-like head lying seemingly lifeless near a wounded bison, its entrails dramatically spilling out. Nearby, a simple bird perched on a stick adds another layer of oddity. Some modern theorists have jumped on this haunting imagery, suggesting that it foretells future events or embodies concepts that were supposedly unknown at the time, perhaps even hinting at out-of-body experiences or other dimensions. Could this be an ancient prophecy, or a primitive understanding of ideas that would only emerge thousands of years later? Most scholars, however, see it differently. They interpret the scene as a shamanistic vision or a mythological narrative reflecting the rich spiritual life and storytelling traditions of Paleolithic humans. The bird-headed man might represent a shaman in a trance or a symbolic journey between worlds.
Utah's Sego Canyon, there's a mysterious stretch of ancient rock art. Some of these carvings are over 8,000 years old. They don't look like your typical cave drawings of hunters or animals. Instead, they're these tall, kinda eerie figures with huge hollow eyes, no arms or legs, and in some cases, what look like antennae sticking out of their heads. They look kind of like robots from 1950s B-movies. Naturally, this has caught the attention of people who believe in the ancient astronaut theory. Basically, that maybe these ancient people had actual encounters with visitors from space. One of the standout images is called the Barrier Canyon Holy Man. And here, this towering figure is surrounded by smaller, shadowy people. Clearly, the tall figure is the important one. But were they drawing something they just imagined, or was this something they actually saw and decided to document? So here's a wild one. A group of explorers in Mexico claim that they've found actual proof of ancient contact with aliens. They were digging around in a set of caves between Veracruz and Puebla, and they pulled up what they're calling the stones of the first encounter. Basically, carved artifacts showing beings with long heads, big oval eyes, and even what look like spaceships. One of the stones apparently shows an alien handing over what looks like a corn cob to a ruler. The group said their search has, quote, yielded totally unexpected results. and they genuinely believe they found the ultimate evidence that alien beings visited Earth thousands of years ago. Local legends talk about a mysterious ship that's been hidden in the area since ancient times, and that's what drew the explorers there in the first place. According to Jose Aguayo, the National Institute of Anthropology and History won't touch this discovery. It's not typical archaeology, he said, and if INAH ever did recognize the artifacts, it would, quote, basically accept one of the most denied facts, the existence of beings not from Earth. Deep inside South Africa's Rising Star cave system, so deep you've got to crawl through tight, pitch-black tunnels to even reach it, archaeologists found engravings that might be the earliest symbolic art ever made, and no, they weren't made by Homo sapiens. The markings, which are made up of lines and crosshatches, some seeming to be crude depictions of animals even, were carved into the rock walls near what appears to be a burial site. But if it wasn't Homo sapiens who etched them though, who was it? A distant human cousin called Homo naledi. They had smaller brains, only about a third the size of ours, but somehow they were making art. If this turns out to be legit, symbolic art, we're talking about a species that supposedly wasn't smart enough to do this kind of thing, actually doing it, and that messes with the whole bigger brain equals more advanced culture idea. As archaeologist Lee Berger put it, this could rewrite the story of human evolution. In 2022, researchers using 3D scanning technology discovered massive ancient glyphs carved into the walls and ceiling of a cave in northern Alabama. No one had noticed them before because you literally couldn't see them without 3D scans. Some of these figures stretch over 7 feet long and were carved into the low ceiling, meaning the people who made them had to lie on their backs in the dark to do it. The designs include snakes, human-like figures and shapes, and they're estimated to be over 1,000 years old. It's believed they were made by the Mississippian culture, but nothing else like this has been found in their art, and whoever etched these would have had to have been pretty serious about it. I mean, these figures were carefully carved into the rock. It's hard to reach and even harder to see. That alone makes it feel like they were hiding something possibly important. Maybe it was part of some ceremony, or maybe it was a message meant for someone in the future. Some researchers think this could have been a symbolic system, a way to pass on ideas or maybe even warnings that we still don't understand. Either way, the size, the location, the weirdness of it all, it makes it hard to believe it was just a random decoration. I mean, after all, it wasn't out in the open. Who'd get to appreciate it? Yeah, these carvings are weird. The Valcamonica petroglyphs found in northern Italy are one of the biggest collections of prehistoric rock art in Europe. Over 140,000 carvings spread across the valley. Most of them are pretty typical for ancient times. You have animals, tools, hunters, ritual scenes, but then you've got these two figures. They've got bulky bodies, what look like tight-fitting suits, and big round heads with what appear to be antennae or helmets. Some people say they look exactly like astronauts. So people who are really into ancient alien type stuff love to point to these two figures as possible proof that early humans might have encountered visitors from another planet, beings wearing spacesuits. Another popular theory is that they might be visitors from the future, which is definitely a fun idea too. Now, obviously these could also be stylized depictions of gods or warriors. You know, definitely could be the case, but the truth is, nobody really knows for sure, because there's no writing to explain what the artists were trying to get across. In Talampaya National Park in Argentina, you'll find these strange carvings etched into the walls, some of them dating back around 2,000 to 3,000 years. They're known as the petroglyphs of the Cienaga culture, and while some of them show normal stuff like animals, others are a bit harder to explain. One figure in particular that gets brought up a lot is this one here. Look at the big round heads, the lack of a face. They almost look like they're wearing helmets, like spacesuits. The proportions are way off from typical human figures, and there are no clear weapons or tools or clothing to suggest it's a hunter or a warrior. Of course, this is where, again, the ancient alien theories come in. People think these carvings might show beings that early humans saw but didn't fully understand. In 2023, archaeologists digging around the Kharga Oasis in Egypt, about 100 miles west of Luxor, came across a weird rock panel. It's now got people debating what the hell it actually shows. At first glance, the carvings look like spiders, webs, maybe bugs caught in the web, and That's exactly what Egyptologist Salim Ikram said it was. Most of the headlines ran with that version of the story. Creepy prehistoric spiders etched into stone, cool enough, but some researchers think there might be more to this. Dr. Derek Cunningham came out with a totally different angle. He believes the patterns are actually ancient astronomy. They line up with important numbers used to predict solar and lunar eclipses. For example, he says the spider-looking shapes are tilted at exactly 13.66 degrees, which matches half of a sidereal month. That's basically how long it takes the moon to line up with the same distant stars again. Then there's Michael Leto, who thinks the symbols represent constellations and zodiac signs, possibly used for some kind of star map. So in a bunch of European caves, researchers started noticing weird marks next to the animal paintings. Not the animals themselves, but symbols, repeating shapes like dots, slashes, crosses, and these odd Y figures. First, everyone figured it was just a really early form of board doodling, but a study in 2023 argued something much bigger. This might be the world's oldest form of writing. They don't always seem to be random marks. They follow patterns. Researchers think these early humans, some 20,000 years ago, were actually keeping track of time. Specifically, they were recording when certain animals mated or migrated by marking lunar months. One of the lead researchers said it's a, quote, really big deal cognitively, going on to explain it shows they were organizing information outside of their brains, on surfaces, which is basically the first step toward writing and recording data. They were tracking breeding cycles, trying to predict animal behavior, and to think this kind of thing could have been going on during the Ice Age inside pitch-black caves, well, that's pretty wild. Deep in southern Russia, in a spot called the Skelnovsky Grotto, now it's kind of hard to tell based on these images, but archaeologists studied some rock carvings here and found that they look a lot like someone's first-hand account of a meteor crashing to Earth. The petroglyph dates back to the Bronze Age. It shows what seems to be a giant object falling from the sky, breaking into pieces, and scattering debris. Researchers think this might be the earliest known eyewitness record of something like this. An ancient person trying to document a meteor explosion the only way they could, by carving it into rock. One team even matched the direction the object was moving in the carving to real landmarks on the ground, like blast zones and impact craters nearby, and it lines up. So whoever made this wasn't just telling a story, they were recording something they saw, something that would have been utterly terrifying, by the way. They probably thought the world was ending. In the remote Kimberley region of northwestern Australia, you'll find the Wanjina cave paintings, ancient Aboriginal artwork that shows figures that are nothing like the usual stick figure hunting scenes or animal drawings you see in other parts of the world. Instead, the Wanjina are drawn with big round heads, little mouths or no mouths at all, massive black eyes, and white faces that almost look like they're glowing. Some are surrounded by halos or lines that shoot out from their heads. And if you're thinking, well, that kind of sounds like your classic alien in modern day, well, you're not alone. The local Aboriginal people say the Wanjina are powerful ancestral spirits, sky beings that brought law, culture, and even rain. Some believe these aren't just mythological spirits, but actual beings that ancient people saw with their own eyes. The mouthless faces, the oversized eyes, the auras, they all feel oddly familiar in today's world of UFO sightings and alien reports. Were the Wanjina just ancient gods, or something they imagined, or could they have been an entity that showed up in the sky thousands of years ago? Way out in Bolivia, there's this massive carved bedrock known as Samipata, basically a giant flat stone plaza with weird channels and patterns etched into it. Ancient people carved long grooves, circles, and snake-like shapes into the rock. It's famous for being shaped a bit like a landing pad. Some even believe this may have actually been a landing pad. For what? Well, ancient alien ships maybe. A stretch, sure, but it's an interesting idea. The UNESCO description calls it a ceremonial platform that got used by multiple cultures. The Chauvet, Inca, then the Spanish built on top, but the exact purpose isn't totally clear. So yeah, unless you're buying into the alien landing pad theory, the patterns most likely have something to do with ceremonies or water flow during rituals. Deep underground in Malta, there's this ancient structure called the Hypogeum. and one room inside is known as the Oracle Chamber. It's carved entirely from stone, and if you speak or chant in there, the sound bounces around in a very strange way. Certain tones, especially deep male voices, can cause the whole room and even people standing in other rooms to vibrate. Scientists tested the chamber and found that it naturally amplifies sound at around 110 hertz. That's a really specific frequency, and it just so happens to be close to what brainwaves produce during trance states. So some believe the room was built to create an altered state of consciousness on purpose, like maybe it was used in rituals to connect with something beyond the physical. Gobekli Tepe is over 11,000 years old. That alone is wild. This place was built before the wheel, before farming really took off, and long before metal tools. But what makes it even weirder is the stuff carved into the stone. These massive T-shaped pillars are covered in animals like lions, snakes, vultures, scorpions, and these odd V-shapes and circles that some people think weren't just for decoration. There's this theory that those V-shapes actually form a kind of calendar, a whole system that tracks months, lunar cycles, and even adds extra days to stay in sync. Basically, people think these carvings might show the builders had a better grip on timekeeping than anyone expected for that era. Others say the whole site might have been designed to line up with specific stars like Sirius or mark things like the summer solstice, which sounds pretty crazy when you realize this was built thousands of years before Stonehenge. There's still debate over what it all means, but even if they weren't charting the stars or inventing calendars, something complex was going on here. In the middle of the desert in southern Peru, you'll find hundreds of rock carvings at Toro Muerto. Most are animals like cattle and felines, but some look like this. More human-like figures, but with huge, round heads that almost look like they're wearing helmets or masks. To fans of ancient technology, those helmets look suspiciously like protective headgear, or maybe even diving suits. Archaeologists say these carvings are part of the Huayacaya culture dating back to 500 CE or so, and probably had some kind of spiritual meaning, but there is something rather sci-fi about them too. Of course, there's no proof it has anything to do with some long-lost ancient technology, but the imagery does make some wonder if they'd been inspired by something not from this world. Rongo Rongo is this mysterious set of carved symbols found on Easter Island. It's found on tablets, staffs, and on the walls of caves, and no one's been able to decode it. There are only about 27 surviving pieces, all weathered or burned, scattered across museums. We've got around 400 unique glyphs, and they're written in a weird back and forth way called reverse boustrophodon. That means you read one line from left to right, then you flip the tablet upside down and read the next line from left to right again. It's like the symbols were carved facing opposite directions on every other line. So the reader had to keep flipping the board back and forth to follow it. So we know how it's supposed to be read, we just don't know what any of it actually says. Some researchers say a few signs seem to count moon cycles or track stuff like family lines or rulers, but we still can't say for sure. Sitting in a quiet little town in Japan, there's this massive rock called Ishi no Hoden. It's huge, about 600 tons, and somehow it looks like it's floating just slightly above the ground, like it's hovering. When you first see it, the shape is super weird too. It's this almost perfect rectangular block with a chunk cut out on one side, and from certain angles it kind of looks like an old school tube TV. The edges are super sharp, the cuts are clean, it just doesn't look like it was made by accident. People have been trying to figure out how ancient builders carved and moved something this size, and more importantly, why it looks like it's suspended. Well, there's water underneath that fills this little basin carved into the rock below. That's what gives it the illusion that it's floating. But there's still a lot of mystery behind this. How was it made? Why was it made? There were no tools found near the site and no records of how it was built or the purpose behind it. The Palpa region in Peru is basically the lesser known cousin of the Nazca Lines. Same kind of thing. There are giant geoglyphs carved into the mountains that are so big you can really only see them from the air. But what makes the Palpa Mountains interesting is that some of these lines and shapes don't just form animals or people, they actually look like runways, like massive landing strips, straight flat paths that stretch across the hills hills and plateaus with sharp edges and intersecting lines. Some people think this is just ancient ceremonial stuff or astronomy-related designs, but others, they think it looks way too much like a place for aircraft to land, which is where you get some alien theories, like maybe these were literal airfields built for flying machines, or at least meant to be seen from above by something in the sky. There's also this one carving near Papa that's this figure with a huge round head and big eyes, and some say it looks pretty alien. No one really knows who made the Palpa lines or how they kept them so perfectly straight across such uneven terrain. They pulled this off without satellites, drones, or planes, which is pretty impressive. Right off the coast of Israel, under about 30 feet of water, there's this ancient site called Atlit Yam. It's a sunken village that dates back around 9,000 years. And what's weird, it has these massive stone circles and standing stones arranged in a pattern. Some people compare it to a mini version of Stonehenge, except underwater. The stones are set up around a freshwater spring, which makes people wonder if it was used for rituals or energy-related stuff. Now obviously energy centers is a loaded phrase. Nobody found ancient power cords or anything, but some researchers think the layout could have had a deeper meaning of some kind. The big question is how it got underwater as well. Sea levels have risen since the Ice Age, but the idea that a whole village with megalithic stonework just sank and got forgotten, it's pretty wild. Out in Arizona, there's this rock carving made by the Hopi tribe, and for decades people have been debating as to what it really means. It's called Prophecy Rock. It shows a long line with different symbols branching off from it, figures, circles. According to some interpretations, it shows two separate futures. One is a straight path, staying connected to nature and balance. The other path branches off and ends in chaos. Some say it represents a future obsessed with technology, war, and destruction. There are also symbols on it that seem to represent sky-related events like stars and comets. Some people say it's just a traditional story, like a visual way the Hopi passed down their beliefs, but maybe it shows they understood patterns in the sky, maybe even how the planets line up over time. Whether that's true or not, nobody's fully decoded every part of the carving. At the ancient site of Baalbek in Lebanon, there's this massive stone platform that just shouldn't exist, not for the time period anyway. There are blocks that weigh over 1,000 tons each. One of them, the stone of the pregnant woman, is over 70 feet long and still sits half buried in a nearby quarry. These aren't decorative stones. They were meant to be moved and placed, but even today we need some incredibly heavy-duty cranes and logistics to pull that off. This was built over 2,000 years ago. Engineers have no solid answer for how the blocks were transported, let alone how they were placed so precisely. Well, what if the builders had access to some sort of technology that's been lost to time? Others go even further, talking about anti-gravity, that maybe the blocks were floated into place somehow. There's no writing that explains how they did it. No tools were left behind. The Romans did build on top of the platform later, but they didn't move the stones. They just used what was already there. In the Bastar region of India's Chhattisgarh state, near the town of Churramama, archaeologists rediscovered a bunch of rock paintings in 2014 that were pretty incredible. First off, the paintings date back about 10,000 years. Imagine looking up close at something some ancient person from 10,000 years ago painted with their bare hands. Aside from the age though, some of this art looks oddly out of place. A lot of it looks more science fiction than your typical spear-wielding hunters and animals you get with most cave paintings. There are humanoid figures with what look like antennae on their heads. Some appear to be flying in disc-shaped crafts with 3 legs, and a lot of these figures just look kinda, for lack of a better word, alien. Now, is that just a coincidence? Were they depicting gods that they just happened to envision the same way aliens are in modern day, or were they actually seeing something? Archaeologist J.R. Bagat, who studies these closely, said these might be depictions of ancient encounters with extraterrestrials, or at least ancient humans' imagination of alien beings. See, local tribes have legends about the Roela, or the small-sized ones, said to have come from the sky in flying machines, abducting villagers before disappearing. Sound familiar? The Laas Geel caves in southwestern France are some of the most famous prehistoric sites in the world, filled with detailed paintings of animals like bulls, deer, and horses, but beyond the impressive animal art, there's something strange here as well. Abstract signs and dots. Now, could they just be decoration? Sure, but some researchers think these marks might be more than that. Early star charts or lunar calendars. Basically, these prehistoric people could have been tracking the moon's phases or the positions of stars to keep time. That would be pretty nuts, because it means they would have had some understanding of astronomy long before we thought people ever did. It could be much more than just making art for art's sake. They may have been recording knowledge, passing it down for generations. Sticking with France, Chauvet Cave is also packed with some of the oldest and most detailed cave paintings in the world, dating back about 33,000 years. Among the artwork, researchers again spotted a series of dots that some believe aren't just there for the sake of it, but actually show the phases of the moon. The lunar cycle lasts about 29 days, and these dots might have been an early way to track it, basically an ancient calendar. To pull this off, whoever made these marks had to observe the moon over many nights and understand its changes. That means early humans weren't just focused on daily survival, but instead were paying close attention to the sky and time. Tracking the moon would have been super useful too, helping with hunting seasons, gathering, timing rituals. And besides the dots, the paintings themselves are just impressive. There's a lot more detail in these images than you usually see in ancient cave art. There's shading being used here. The animals have more depth and shape to them. They look almost lifelike. And that alone makes these cave markings seem more advanced for the time, but these dots, it could be the earliest evidence of our ancestors mixing art and science in a way we might not expect from people living such a long time ago. Guanyingdong Cave in China has some of the earliest evidence of the lavalos stone tool technique, dating back anywhere from 170,000 to 80,000 years. But what is the lavalos technique? Well, this was a game changer in prehistoric technology, because instead of just smashing rocks together and hoping for the best, you'd start with a chunk of stone, usually flint or something similar, and shape it into a very specific form. This chunk is what archaeologists call a core. The idea was to carefully trim and prepare the surface of this core so that when they finally struck it in just the right spot, a flake would pop off that was already shaped into a useful tool. So they weren't shaping the flake after breaking it, they were shaping the core beforehand so that the flake came off ready to use. And since the shaping was intentional, it was repeatable. They could knock off several usable flakes from one core, all similar in shape and size. That's a huge step up from just hitting two rocks together and hoping something sharp breaks off. Hohlefels Cave in southwestern Germany is a gold mine for ancient stuff. Archaeologists found the Venus of Hohlefels here, which is a tiny figurine carved from mammoth ivory. And yes, that means it was actually carved from a mammoth's tusk. This 2.5-inch figurine is supposed to be a woman. What immediately pops out are the cartoonishly large breasts and hips. In fact, they're so big you can barely see this woman's head. Now, I don't think this was meant to be a dig, although that's possible, but most archaeologists believe this was meant to symbolize fertility. Maybe this was some sort of goddess figure. People back then cared a lot about fertility because survival depended on it. I mean, I guess it still does, but it really did back then. So this figurine was probably super important. Along with that, they found musical instruments made from bird bones and, again, mammoth ivory, flutes with finger holes that could play actual notes, not just one sound. Carving those flutes would have taken very sharp tools and serious skill. I mean, making finger holes without cracking the bone would have been no easy task. The Sun Temple at Mesa Verde National Park in southwestern Colorado was built into a cliff alcove shaped kind of like a big D. The people who built it, the ancestral Pabloans, used real geometry to design it. The shape and structure follow certain patterns, like the 3-4-5 triangle, which is a simple way to make perfect corners. Something called the golden rectangle, a layout that shows up in art, nature, and architecture because it just feels balanced. Obviously, this kind of precision doesn't just happen by accident. They had to know how to measure, how to mark angles, and how to lay everything out so the pieces fit together exactly right. On top of that, parts of the temple line up with the sun during the summer and winter solstices, meaning the builders were also tracking how the sun moved through the sky. That would have helped them keep time, mark the seasons, and plan ceremonies and planting cycles. Blombos Cave is on the southern coast of South Africa, looking out over the Indian Ocean. Inside, archaeologists found pieces of ochre, which is iron-rich clay that turns a rusty red or brown color when it dries. It's soft enough to carve, but durable enough to hold those carvings for tens of thousands of years. People back then would grind it up to make paint or use it as a kind of an early crayon, but what they found in this cave were blocks of ochre with carefully carved patterns. These engravings are around 75,000 years old. Some have cross-hatched lines, some look like grids, others have angles or zigzags. They're more than just random scratches. They were made with tension, using stone or bone tools to create repeated, even patterns, and it's not like they were carving animals or people. You know, the usual stuff you see in cave art. These were abstract shapes, which doesn't sound all that impressive, but think of what this means. They weren't just copying what they saw. They were thinking in symbols. As for what the symbols mean, maybe it was some sort of language, an early form of code, or maybe it was just decorative. Whatever the purpose though, it proves that people that far back were already thinking creatively, instead of just hunting and surviving like animals. Altamira Cave in northern Spain has some of the best preserved prehistoric paintings ever discovered. These were found in the late 1800s, and at that time people thought they were fake, because no one believed humans that old could make art this good. The paintings date back around 36,000 years. They mostly show bison, deer, and horses, done in natural colors like reds, blacks, and browns. What's crazy though is how lifelike some of these are. Instead of just arbitrarily applying paint to the walls, in some cases they actually use the curves of the cave to give the animals more shape. Beyond that, there are again symbols, dots, and handprints. Some researchers think those markings might have been used to track lunar or seasonal cycles, acting like an early calendar. Tassili Martian is a massive plateau in the middle of the Sahara Desert in southeastern Algeria. Here you'll find thousands of ancient rock paintings and carvings spread across more than 70,000 square kilometers. Most of it's animals, hunting scenes, day-to-day life, pretty standard for prehistoric art, but there's a small group of figures that really stand out. These ones don't look like hunters or herders or anything immediately recognizable. Some look like they're wearing helmets or full-body suits. A few appear to have large, round heads with no facial features and limbs that are thin and stretched. Some call them the Great Martian Gods. One of the most famous is known as the Roundhead, a figure with a bulbous head surrounded by smaller human-like figures reaching up toward it. Some even appear to be hovering or floating, not standing on any surface. And there are also shapes that look kind of like discs or capsules. Could they be depictions of deities or shamans in ritual clothing? Definitely possible. But what if these deities were actually something they were seeing? Visitors from the sky. The story of the Drop of Stone starts in 1937 when a Chinese expedition led by Professor Chi Pute supposedly discovered a burial site high in the Bayan Har Mountains near the border of Tibet and China. Inside they claimed to have found small skeletons with large skulls and thin, frail bodies, about 4 feet tall. Alongside the remains were hundreds of round stone discs, each about a foot in diameter, with a small hole in the center and 2 spiral grooves carved into the surface. Those spirals were said to contain thousands of tiny characters that could only be seen with magnifying glasses. Years later, a man named Sum Nui allegedly translated them at the Beijing Academy for Prehistoric Research. The translation apparently told the story of an alien spacecraft that crash-landed in the mountains 12,000 years before. The beings, called the Drapa, had come from another star system and were stranded. Some of the locals accepted them, others did not. The discs supposedly recorded their journey, their crash, their struggle to survive. Nui's report was said to have been dismissed by the academic community. He was mocked so badly that he left China and ended up dying in Japan, and the story resurfaced in 1966 from a Soviet journalist who wrote about the discs. But no museum ever officially displayed the stones, and they've since disappeared.
Coming in at number 10 is the Magura Cave. The Magura Cave is located in northwestern Bulgaria. Cave paintings there have been estimated to be made between 10,000 and 8,000 years ago. The drawings represent important events of the society that had occupied the Magura Cave, such as religious ceremonies, hunting scenes, and depictions of deities which are unique on the Balkan Peninsula. The fertility dance and the hunting ceremony rank among the most noteworthy paintings. One grouping from the Bronze Age has been interpreted as a solar calendar. According to Alexei Stoev and Penka Valkova-Stovia, hope I said their names right, Bronze Age paintings of staggered black and white squares used to count the days in the calendar month permit to describe fairly accurately the number of days in the solar tropical year. So did this cave painting predict the use of calendars? I think so. The cave paintings allowed storing information about regional solar calendars, customs, religious festivals, and rituals of the society, which is the earliest representation yet to be discovered in Europe. Number 9. Astronomy. A new study says that some of the world's oldest cave paintings reveal that ancient people had relatively advanced knowledge of astronomy. According to the new analysis, some of the paintings are not simply depictions of wild animals, as was previously thought. Instead, the animal symbols represent star constellations in the night sky and are used to represent dates and mark events such as comet strikes. Researchers from the universities of Edinburgh and Kent studied details of Paleolithic and Neolithic art featuring animal symbols at sites in Turkey, Spain, France, and Germany. They found all the sites used the same method of date keeping based on sophisticated astronomy, even though the art was separated in time by tens of thousands of years. According to the study published November 2nd, 2018, the cave painting suggests that, perhaps as far back as 40,000 years ago, humans kept track of time using knowledge of how the position of the stars slowly changes over thousands of years. The findings indicate that the astronomical insights of ancient people were far greater than previously believed. Their knowledge may have aided navigation of the open seas, the researchers say, with implications for our understanding of prehistoric human migration. Martin Sweatman, the University of Edinburgh School of Engineering, led the study and said early cave art shows that people had advanced knowledge of the night sky within the last ice age. Intellectually, they were hardly any different to us today. Researchers reinterpreted earlier findings from a study of stone carving at one of these sites in modern-day Turkey, which is interpreted as a memorial to a devastating comet strike around 11,000 BC. This strike was thought to have initiated a mini ice age known as the Younger Drawes period. Number 8. Wallinga Rock Art Panel. In Australia, this rock art panel contains more than 200 motifs. Stylistic changes in the layering of the paintings suggest that they were painted in the last 3 broad painting phases. Changes in social, political, economic, and religious life are often marked by changes in visual expression such as found in this cave. Although the rock art is yet to be radiocarbon dated, some of the layers are likely to be at least 3,000 years old and may have much earlier origins. The oldest paintings have recently been called Wanjina figures, since this particular style of figure has only been encountered in this rock art shelter. These figures have elongated bodies and large round heads circled with headdresses. They have eyes and noses but no mouths. Most are painted with white outline and black infill. Now, what do these faces mean? Are they even drawings of humans, or are they aliens or some sort of otherworldly creature? Seems like we may never know. Number 7. Cave of Swimmers. The Cave of Swimmers is a cave with ancient rock art in the Libyan desert section of the Sahara. The cave and rock art was discovered in October 1933. Now, the drawings include those of a giraffe and a hippopotamus, and they're estimated to have been created as early as 10,000 years ago, with the beginning of the African humid period, when the Sahara was significantly greener and wetter than it is today. On the wall, there also looks like there's some sort of humanoid creature swimming. Physical scientists who have been conducting research in the area drew a provisional link between the proposed swimming humans and 2 lakes that are 124 miles south of the cave. However, Andres Bore, an archaeologist who is doing the research in the area, questions whether the figures are swimming or not. He believes that the drawings are clearly symbolic with an unknown meaning. Now, I'm gonna say what we're all thinking. These are drawings of mermaids, right? Perhaps mermaids were around at that time and then they went into hiding. And hopefully one day they'll reveal themselves to us again. Number 6. Laas Geel. Laas Geel are cave formations on the rural outskirts of Hargeisa, Somaliland. They contain some of the earliest known cave paintings of domesticated African arcs in the Horn of Africa. Laas Geel's rocks art is estimated to date circa 3,500 to 2,500 BCE. During November and December 2002, an archaeological survey was carried out in Somaliland by a French team of researchers. During the course of the survey, the excavation team discovered Laas Geel cave paintings that encompass an area of 10 rock caves. In an excellent state of preservation, the rock art depicts wild animals and decorated cattle, cows, and bulls. Now, could this be them trying to honor the animals or showing us that one day cows will rule the world? Unlikely, but I'll put it out there. They also feature herders, which are believed to be the creators of the painting. Number 5. The Great Gallery. The Horseshoe Canyon in Utah contains some of the most significant rock markings in North America. The Great Gallery includes well-preserved life-size figures with intricate designs. This well-preserved site includes both pictographs, painted figures, and petroglyphs, figures etched in rock with a sharp stone. The tampered life-size figures lack arms and legs, but frequently contain intricate designs. Now, was the lack of arms and legs a choice, or did they have some people who were a part of that community that didn't have legs or arms? I'm not too sure, but other impressive sites include spring wildflowers, sheer sandstone walls, and mature cottonwood groves along the intermittent stream in the canyon bottom. Artifacts recovered from the site in this area date back to as early as 9,000 to 7,000 BCE. Number 4. Big Rock. The paintings on the Big Rock near Okotoks, Alberta are estimated to be anywhere from hundreds to thousands of years old. The Blackfoot people used the rock as a landmark for finding a crossing over the Sheep River before European settlers arrived. There are countless First Nation legends associated with the rock, some of which were relayed through pictographs painted onto its surface. Now, according to local elders, one such painting depicts a journey. The arrows point in the direction of travel, north, while moons or circles tell the time it took to complete the journey. There are 17 moons in total, meaning it likely took 17 months to complete the trek. The symbols and figures at the top of this pictograph may indicate why the journey was made. This is essentially a map with instructions made out of pictures, which is pretty cool. Number 3. The UFO. Chhattisgarh State Department of Archaeology and Culture plans to seek help from NASA and ISRO for research on 10,000-year-old rock paintings depicting aliens and UFOs in Churramama region of Cantor District. According to archaeologist Jay Baggett, these paintings have depicted aliens like those shown in Hollywood and Bollywood films. Located about 130 kilometers from Raipur, Baggett said the findings suggest that humans in prehistoric times may have seen or imagined beings from other planets, which still create curiosity among people and researchers. Extensive research is needed for further findings. Chhattisgarh presently doesn't have any such expert who could give clarity on the subject. Now, there are several beliefs among locals in these villages. While few worship the paintings, others narrate stories that they have heard from ancestors about Rohilla people, the small-sized ones, who used to land from the sky in a round-shaped flying object and take away one or two persons of the village who never returned. Now, the paintings are done in natural colors that have hardly faded despite the years. The strangely carved figures are seen holding weapon-like objects and do not have clear features. Specifically, the nose and mouth are missing. In a few pictures, they are even shown wearing spacesuits. We can't refute the possibility of imagination by prehistoric men, but humans usually fancy such things, the archaeologists said. Number 2. Lascaux Caves. Lascaux Caves is a network of caves near the village of Wanjina. Over 600 wall paintings cover the interior walls and ceilings of the cave. The paintings represent primarily large animals, typical local contemporary fauna that correspond with the fossil record of the Upper Paleolithic in the area. They are the combined effort of many generations, and with continued debate, the age of the paintings is usually estimated at around 17,000 years. An amateur researcher assembled a team that included experts from the fields of mathematics, archaeology, and psychology who analyzed the data, compared it to seasonal behaviors of modern animals, and agreed that the numbers represented by dots and slashes are not cardinal but rather ordinal representations of months. As to the frequent occurring symbol that represents a Y, it indicates the month in which various female animals birth their young. The team theorized in the Cambridge Archaeological Journal that this mark may constitute the first known example of an action word, i.e. a verb to give birth. Taken together, the cave paintings and non-figurative figurative markings tell an old age circular tale of migration, birthing, and mating of birds, bison, fish, horses, mammoths, rhinos, and others. Did these paintings create the first fertility app? I don't know, but it's pretty impressive that they were able to keep track of all of that. And coming in at number 1 is hunting paintings. An Indonesian splunker named Hamara was exploring the grounds of a concrete plant on the island of Sulawesi in 2017 when he found a cave full of art. The painting depicts 2 pigs and 4 small body relatives of water buffalo, as well as what appears to be 8 humanoid figures that are 2 to 4 inches tall. Some of the human figures are holding long, spindly objects pointed toward the animals that might be ropes or spears. The humanoid figures bear usual features, including one with a stubby tail and another with a bird-like beak. Now, why would they draw humans like this? Were they thinking of what a cross of a human and an animal would be, like our present-day crossbreeding experiments? Or dare I say, did they come up with the concept of furries? Whether the art depicts a hunt or some other event, it's likely the oldest known story told through pictures, and the researchers say as the mural dates back to at least 44,000 years.